I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know exactly where this video is going to go. All I know is that this is something that's on my heart today, and I want to talk to you about it. I'm going to challenge you to do two things. I want you to track your progress, and I want you to celebrate your wins or to celebrate your milestones. And the reason I'm making this video is because I'm trying to practice what I preach. This is not really about me. I am going to show you some things, though. I just finished these progress trackers for all my courses, and I'm going to talk about them in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about whatever it is that you're working on. Guitar is probably not your job. It is probably something that you do for fun, but it is also something that we try and get a sense of accomplishment from. The problem is, like if you're in something every day, like let's say you go to a job where you have metrics to measure your performance, somebody else is kind of tracking your productivity. And if you're not productive, then maybe eventually you get fired. But the whole point is that you don't really have to track your productivity. There's an external system to do that for you. And because you're in it every day, you have a good sense of where your time has gone as time passes. And the problem is with something like guitar, since it's not something we have to do, it's possible for us to make progress on something, but because we're making that progress over a period of time with an hour here or an hour there, we can move on to something else in the future with no real sense of accomplishment. Even worse, because stuff on guitar sometimes doesn't stick as much as we want it to. Let's say you go through and you study a course and you learn a whole solo, or even without courses, if you're just studying on your own like I used to do when I was in college. You learn a whole song and then you move on to something else, and then a year later you can't remember it. It can be kind of defeating, but I think that that's BS a little bit. The work that you do to learn something, that work counts, and you deserve to have that work and that effort recognized. The problem is that nobody really is going to record your progress and celebrate your wins unless you do. Recording your progress is something that can feel like a discipline. The way that I talked a few weeks ago about the problem with telling yourself that you have to practice is that if you're not somebody who's motivated by urgency and that kind of barking command sergeant or drill sergeant, if you're not motivated by that kind of stuff, turning it into something you feel obligated to do is a terrible way to get yourself to actually do it. And one of the ways that you can kind of life hack your way into being more consistent is to consider what would happen if you couldn't do it, if you couldn't practice guitar. Another motivation that you can use to do something every day is to keep kind of your future self in mind. Keep the reward in mind and let that reward develop enough gravity to pull you through something that can otherwise feel like a chore, such as recording your progress. So maybe it's better if I just explain here. So I want you to look at this. Back in late 2013, I was in the middle of shutting down StevieSnacks.com. And it was one of the first times that I went months without really publishing anything on YouTube or putting out any courses. I had been pretty regular up to that time. And developing Texas Blues Alley was a huge amount of work, and I was doing the kind of conceptual planning and design and coding work that I had never done in such quantities. But at some point, a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, you know, those days where I feel like my time has just kind of disappeared, like I work by myself, so this is my job, but there's nobody keeping track of my time and, you know, measuring my accomplishments. So I realized that if I don't do this, nobody else will. This, what you see here, was not necessarily enjoyable at the time. But now, almost 9 years later, the sense of satisfaction that I have looking back and being able to read about what was going through my mind at this really pivotal, stressful, significant period of my career is an incredibly rewarding feeling. I'm pretty good with it all the way up, and 2019 during the summer, it was just a crazy busy development period for the stuff on my site. Then the pandemic hits, and you can see over the months of the pandemic as it goes on, months go by with barely any record of what I worked on. And I lost sight of what I am trying to communicate to you now, which is the way to keep something from feeling like a chore when it comes to tracking your progress, is to think of the end result, which is you in a year or 2 years, looking back at the record of what you worked on, looking back at the record of you putting in the time, investing in yourself. You know, that's something to be proud of, because a lot of you, depending on how you were grown up, you've given a lot of things to other people, and you've been instilled with a good sense of values, and you give a lot to other people. But the time that you spend on guitar is time that you are investing in yourself and your own happiness, and that's something to be proud of. And documenting your progress, even if it doesn't feel like progress, documenting what you work on each day, journaling, if you will, is something to be proud of. So then at a little bit of a higher level, I want to show you another thing that I've done, and this is all part of me practicing what I preach. I realized that the work log thing with the text was not enough. I needed a visual picture of what I was working on. So I started tracking the projects that I work on with dates so I could put them into a timeline like this. And instead of recording what I did each day all the time, I basically tried to remember beginning and end dates of little projects that I did. And so as a result, I have a pretty complete timeline over the past couple of years of all the different things that I've done. I look back on this, and it helps me to realize that my time was not wasted. I actually have a real job. I do real work. Writing down what I've done is important. Now, the other side of that is celebrating your wins. And so that's part of why I'm making this video. Tracking your progress is good. Keeping track of what you work on is good. But when you accomplish something, like, we are built to have that matter. Like, let's talk about working on a course and you're learning a solo. If you finish part of a solo, like, take, for example, this Albert's Influence course. There's 5 different solos in it. Let's say you finish solo 1. It only feels like you're 1/5 of the way through the course, but you have finished learning a 12-bar solo, and that's worth celebrating. And I think at some point in our life, like, kids don't have a problem with this. Kids they'll tell you, they'll seek out praise for the tiniest little dumb things. And of course, your parents, you love them, you celebrate their tiny wins. But at some point, we're kind of taught that you're just supposed to do what you do and not seek out attention for it. The problem is, eventually, you really start to believe that what you do is not that significant and not important. And I'm here to tell you that if for no other reason, it is important to celebrate when you've done something, when you finish something, because you're not trying to, none of us are winning Oscars or Grammys for the work that we're putting in learning courses, or me working on the Texas Blues Alley site and business. But the goal is we want to be able to keep going, right? Like, we want to be here in a year still doing what we're doing. And I think part of the lie that some of us have bought into is that we will just end up continuing to do this without celebrating our wins. And I don't think that's true, especially for learning guitar. A lot of people who don't celebrate their wins or track their progress just put the guitar down and they never pick it back up because they lose that sense of accomplishment. And so if you don't watch any more of this video, because I'm going to talk about some of my own stuff here, just take this little piece of advice. If you're going to spend the money on gear, and if you're going to aspire to improve yourself at guitar, take time to write down what you work on each day. The app that I showed you before is called Day One. It is my favorite journaling app. You can have different journals. It's super easy to add things. It can have pictures. It can have all other things, you know. And then the timeline thing is called Aeon Timeline or something like that. But you don't have to use anything fancy. It can just be the Notes app on your phone or whatever. Write down what you work on each day. And then when you finish something, like part of a course, I don't know, tell somebody about it. You know, like I used to finish a big course that I was planning, and my wife would say, well, what are you doing to celebrate? And you know what's really sick is that I had to tell her, I don't think I know how to celebrate anything. If you're at a job and you have a good year, you can get a raise. And then with the extra money from the raise, maybe you can take your family out to eat and you celebrate. But when your guitar is kind of a solitary thing. Most of us, if we do play guitar, our families tolerate it more than they celebrate it, if I'm being honest, because sometimes, you know, in beginning stages, it's just noise. But if you put the time in and you learn part of a solo and you learn how to play it from beginning to end, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the people who put up with your guitar habit to celebrate and mark that occasion some way. Because if you don't, if you accomplish something on guitar, whether it's learning 12 bars of a 60-bar solo or learning the whole thing, if you accomplish that and you don't take time to celebrate it, you are essentially telling the people in your life, I took my time away from you for nothing important. If it's not worth celebrating, then what the hell are you doing it for? If putting in the work of learning part of a guitar solo or learning some rhythms, when you finish that, if it's not worth celebrating, why the hell are you doing it? Yes, you enjoy it and you like to play it and everything, but celebrate the work that you put in, celebrate the accomplishment. That signals to the people in your life that the time that you lose me to this hobby is not just throwaway. It is something that matters. It matters to me. I'm investing in myself, and hopefully, if you track your progress and you celebrate your wins, that will produce a happier father or son or daughter or wife, regardless of who the person in the family is that's playing guitar. The work matters. Celebrate it. And so to kind of put my money where my mouth is, I'm going to show you some ways that I have tried to make that happen recently. So I made some changes to our online player a couple of months ago. One of the things that I did was I gave people the ability to check in when they start to study, and I track who has checked in the most, and it tells them how many times they've checked in. So that's all great. But I also gave them a personal study log. And the goal was, initially, that they would come in here and they would write down, you know, today I worked on whatever, right? And so these white journal entries here, this is initially what went into the study log. But I realized what was happening was that people were, like Christopher here, he's writing down what he's working on in his check-in entry. And I realized these check-in entries are kind of ephemeral. They kind of disappear after 48 hours. And someone said, hey, what if you put the check-in entries into the study log, so regardless of where people write it down, it gets tracked? And I thought, well, that's a great idea. So what I did is I modified the study log to basically show their check-in entries and their study log entries. So here they have a big list. They're recording their activity each day. All they have to do to track what they work on is every day when they open the Pro Player, come here to check in and say, today I am working on, and then whatever it is, click the check-in button, and later when they go to their study log, that will appear right here. And because this is all, kind of locked inside the online player, sometimes you need a reminder. You have to actually come onto the computer if you want to study. I give them the option to print their study log, and it allows them to kind of print out everything that they've done so that, they can hang this on their wall or whatever and give themselves a reminder of what they worked on, which might make it a little bit easier to open up the player and study each day. And so back to the original inspiration for this video. I'm making this video because I'm celebrating one of my wins. And one of my wins is I finally have progress tracking documents for all of my soloing and rhythm courses. For some of them, like the Albert's Influence, the Albert King Slow Blues course, I've tried to arrange it so your progress can fit all on one page. And it took an unbelievably long amount of time to get all of these formatted the exact same way. And these are free to download. I'm going to put a link in the description because even though, the locals program is my focus now, I have thousands of people, tens of thousands, who purchased courses before I ever launched the locals program. And yes, I'm going to suggest that if you're one of those people, let's say you took one of my courses in 2014 and you never did any more, I'm going to challenge you. Go find the progress tracker at the link below, download it, if only to check all the boxes off, and put it on your wall. Because you did the work. You deserve it. I don't care if you can play the solo anymore. You did the work. You deserve to have a record of the work that you've done. So, soloing courses are, in my courses, they're divided into licks in each solo. My rhythm courses, a little bit harder to track, so I put bars 1 through 4, bars 5 through 8, all of that good stuff for each rhythm. And then some of them, like the big monster 5 boxes essential licks course, I couldn't get them all on one page, so I spread it over 2, and I tried to format it so it looks nice, so you won't be ashamed to hang it on your wall. Categories outlined in the solid borders there. And so I was just going to post these and not say anything about it. But I watched my buddy Michael Palmisano, who just posted a video about celebrating your wins. And I thought about all of the time that I had spent tracking my progress in other years and everything like that. And I realized this is something that probably took me. I had someone helping me get these into a spreadsheet, but in terms of the formatting and everything, I did this all myself, and it took me 3 or 4 days solid of combined work to get them all nicely laid out like that. And I realized if I don't celebrate that I got this, no one else is going to do it for me. And so I'm making this video to celebrate one of my wins, which is that I finally got this finished, and I'm putting it out there for free for anybody who's ever taken one of my courses to go download the progress tracker, fill it out, put it on your wall, be proud of the work that you did. And then if you're a member of the locals, I'm eventually going to get these integrated in with the Pro Player so you can download them from there, and then eventually track the progress online and print it out from that too. So I don't know if that's inspiring. Like I said at the beginning, I didn't know where this video was going to go, but it was on my heart to challenge you to track your progress and celebrate your milestones and your wins, because the time that you spend is meaningful. And if it is meaningful, it deserves to be remembered and it deserves to be celebrated. Thanks.